Hi, everyone. My name's Scott Campbell, and I lead the communications, media, and entertainment industries for SAP. My first NAB was actually in 1992. I'm showing my age here, but while preparing for today, it reminded me of the commencement speech by Steve Jobs when he gave it about how it was easier to join the dots looking back. So over the last 30 years, there's been some key inflection points where new technology actually made quite an impact. So today I'll share some of those moments and key learnings and highlight what executives should be considering for their core business systems for the future, including the role of new technologies like artificial intelligence. So in 1990, technology was still mostly analog. And I was a recording engineer from the late 80s into the early 90s. And I first attended NAB to meet DigiDesign, of course, now part of Avid, during their transition from Sound Tools to Pro Tools, and this was before Avid bought the company. But I became one of their first reselling partners in Europe. And before all that, this is me in 1990 on the left, and on the right, that's the cover of Robbie Robertson's album, Storyville, which I recorded a band from Scotland called the Blue Nile, playing on about 5 songs on that record. LA radio stations loved the Blue Nile, with songs like Tinseltown and the Rain and Downtown Lights that seem to resonate. And it seems to have created this kind of secret underworld of famous musicians who just adored them. And after working on the Robbie sessions, I was asked to work with them again with Annie Lennox. And this time it was the song Downtown Lights that she was recording for the Medusa album. So, 1990, Madonna released the song Vogue, and it was on the top of the charts. And CDs were kind of becoming more popular, but things were still very much audio and video wise, were still mostly tape based. And, they were being played out, it was edited on tape and it was recorded onto tape. Blockbuster was still alive and kicking, and VHS tape was actually still strong in resale. And Gartner first coined the term ERP, which sparked a debate in the media about its relevance ever since. And of course, SAP was founded back in 1972, so it was already developing its third generation ERP platform by then called R3. And back in 1990, when typing pools were still a thing and email was still like a brand new thing as well, most, in fact, remote ordering in those days was actually still done via fax. And standards like ISO were emerging. In fact, MPEG would emerge 2 years later in 1992. And of course, Six Sigma was gaining traction for project managers. The kind of pinnacle invention for me that year was the arrival of the first web browser called the World Wide Web, and the name kind of stuck. So, 1990 really does feel like a lifetime ago. And, back then, I don't think we could have imagined the kind of digital supercomputers that we'd have in our smartphones today. And anyway, a team member sent me this tweet, which I thought was kind of funny. They said, "This is like you. One day you're young and cool, and the next minute you're thinking about B2B SaaS," which is kind of my world now. So let's look at today compared to 1990. The world certainly has changed since Madonna released Vogue. This year, Taylor Swift, of course, released an album called The Tortured Poets Department. Has anyone listened to it? Any nods? Yep, okay, a few nods there. So interestingly, it has a song on it called Guilty as Sin, and it references the Blue Nile and the song Downtown Lights. So I thought that kind of funny, but who knew Taylor Swift would write a song about my old friends in Glasgow? But I can assure you that they were not expecting it. So they've been enjoying the streams they've been getting ever since. But what you really have today in the world is, of course, an aging population. People go through portfolio careers. I started as a recording engineer. Now I work for a software company. That's kind of what happens as, I guess, you get older. But the younger generation today, of course, are also purpose-driven consumers. They care about issues like sustainability and or cancel culture if the brand doesn't represent their values. Another thing today is talent scarcity. While the politicians would have you believe there's not many jobs, there's actually a scarcity of talent in this country. There's more jobs available than actually people to fill them with the expertise that they're looking for. And hyper automation, I went to the supermarket the other day there, and I was standing in line looking at my phone for like 10 minutes till I realized I was standing in line for the self-checkout. So I was waiting to check myself out. So, that's hyper automation for you, of course. But on top of that, you've got, of course, all the NVIDIA stuff happening, artificial intelligence, distributed computing. And of course, the most recent thing that's getting really interesting, of course, is spatial user experiences and augmented reality. We're going to talk a little bit about the composable business as well. So these innovation ecosystems as well are great. My boss sent me a picture the other week and he said, can you make a diagram out of this? Because he knew I was the media guy. And I said, no, but I sent it to Fiverr, outsourced it for $10. Somebody sent me back an Illustrator file with a perfect, line on it. So, there really is these ecosystems out there that you can reach out to. And the main thing that I learned was that in my early career, disruption is inevitable. And in the music industry, you once needed a record contract in advance to actually be able to afford making a record in a recording studio. And of course, now you can literally make one at your home with an iPad. So, I assembled one of the first Pro Tools systems with a band from Scotland called Simple Minds. They used to spend a fortune renting synclaviers and compiling vocals and guitar takes with them, but Pro Tools really broke new barriers at a fraction of the cost. So today, production tools are even more accessible with like Pro Tools and even companies like Adobe moving to this subscription model to make it kind of more accessible to the masses. So similarly, SAP's Cloud ERP brings the power of SAP to companies of all shapes and sizes. So let me explain how it's evolved in music industry terms. So vinyl's making a comeback, but it represents a monolithic era of music consumption, similar to early ERP systems, which were everything on a single platform. And then, of course, came best of breed, which allowed for tailored software, but it was often complex to manage. And then you had postmodern ERP, which is kind of like the MP3 phenomenon. It kind of just lifted and shifted what you did in the old world with your music, putting it into the cloud. And, now, of course, I've talked about the fact we have composable ERP, which is kind of akin to those experiences with Spotify or Apple Music, where it makes recommendations to you. It doesn't require local downloads. It can be accessed from any device and lets you pick up where you left off. So composable ERP is the next generation of ERP. So, I've said this word composable a few times, and it reminded me of this line in The Princess Bride by Inigo Montoya, where he says, you keep using that word, and I do not think it means what you think it means. So, we could end up debating composable and ERP and cloud and these kind of terms for days. But, let me just break down composable at its highest level. So imagine having like 5,000 apps that you can choose from. And let's say you're creating a new business and you need about 10 to actually successfully run your business. So you'd need a core financial system, core financial platform for your accounting, your tax, your payroll, HR for hiring and benefits, maybe sales and customer service tools, and maybe a scheduling tool for your production resources. And maybe you're offering subscription billing solutions for a new streaming service. So we throw in a short list of apps. Companies can actually experiment with new business models for startup divisions or for acquisitions, and the future really is composable. So we recommend taking an AI first and suite first approach to modernize ERP. So SAP is an open platform and it can connect to third-party systems and data. But when you use SAP Suite for your core business functions, you get an out-the-box integrated platform. And this gives you the lowest total cost of ownership and the quickest time to value from any system that's actually out there. So it allows finance, supply chain, customer experience, procurement, human resources, and your IT teams all to share the same data across the company in real time. And what's really cool is you have a co-pilot that supports you by processing information automatically. So you kind of have this coach beside you, and it helps you make informed decisions as you go about your tasks and makes recommendations to you. So the second lesson that I learned back in the 90s that I thought about for this was that you can actually reimagine the impossible. In fact, I would argue that it's much easier today than it was back then just to grow a small business thanks to composable ERP. So in 1997, nobody was interested in listening to music over the internet. And unperturbed, I became the first partner to sign a deal with a Silicon Valley company called Liquid Audio. Now, we launched in the UK with CNN filming Duran Duran, downloading the first digital single on the internet. It was a big splash at the time. And I also helped Virgin Radio become the first UK radio station to live stream over the internet. And it made them the #1 listened to radio station in the world for over a decade. until Pandora came along. And people thought I was crazy. They're like, why would people stream on the internet? You know, but now, of course, it's got the largest share of music consumption today. So I guess who knew? But I was fortunate to work on some other groundbreaking projects with artists like George Michael and Roger Taylor from Queen, who got a Guinness World Record entry for doing the first live concert to a mass audience over the internet. So innovation is rife today as well. You only need to walk the floors here of NAB and you can see these new business models are constantly evolving where companies are reimagining the impossible. So in the words of the management consultant, Peter Drucker, he said, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is to act with yesterday's logic. And from my own experience, pioneering emerging technology, combining growth and efficiency is crucial for any company to survive. You know, adding agility and resilience makes a business ready to seize opportunities and tackle literally any challenges. So the 4 key trends that are driving ERP innovation today are agility, being able to look back at the lockdown showed us the need for employees to be able to work from anywhere. Of course, broadcast ops were the unsung heroes of the lockdown, but even the hosts were using green screens and working from home during the pandemic. And then I talked a little bit about automation and artificial intelligence. You know, these technologies reduce costs. They help automate tasks and free people up to do more valuable work. And then integration, you know, the seamless flow of data across these different applications is kind of critical. And then I've talked a little bit about composable applications, how they're the new era of more flexible, modular ERP systems. And they're the kind of building blocks that's important, but there's one more crucial ingredient for it all to work, and that is the humans, thankfully. So, you know, technology alone won't fix our problems. It can slow things down, in fact, or even harm productivity if a brand's reputation or the process aren't optimized, both for the people that work for the company and also, obviously, consumers. So major changes require senior leadership to sponsor organizational change, not just technology initiatives. And it works best when the leadership can give you clarity and it's given that you've got agreement and alignment for everyone on what those goals are. And as I said about integration, I can't tell you enough how that should be planned up front, not an afterthought. I've seen many projects fail because they haven't thought about integration, because it can lead to unexpected costs that people didn't budget for, and that can cause problems with folks that didn't think about that. So, you know, we recommend keeping a clean core in SAP for future-proofing. It means that you can upgrade and take advantage of the new capabilities as we bring them out. We do that twice a year. And of course, that requires you to have good data quality and have good governance in how you manage that data coming in. So of course, this can seem a bit daunting. It can seem like open heart surgery for a business. And SAP has been around for 5 decades. So, you know, we've kind of done this. We've got some unique capabilities for media and a global network of over 1 million suppliers and contracts in the media industry that are using our platform. So, you know, this was on to my 3rd lesson, which was to innovate on a solid foundation. Now, does anyone want to take a guess who this is a drawing of? Yes, sir, you nailed it, Frank Zappa. So it's not the best drawing I've ever seen, you know, but the budget was such for today that we used a Creative Commons license. Frank Zappa, of course, was a legend, but out of respect for him, I just wanted to make the point that he epitomized the idea of being able to innovate on a solid foundation. He understood the basics of music. He knew the key, the time signature, how many bars he had to play for a solo. But, you know, he also knew what style and what instrument he would even want to play, but he never played the same thing twice. And the reason he could do that is, of course, because he had such a solid foundation underneath with a great band that made it easier for him to innovate, especially when the band could keep up with him. So this is how you really need to view your business applications today. A solid foundation is actually the underpinning. It's crucial for differentiation and innovation, because without it, survival is unlikely. And Gartner, back in 2012, produced this model, and I think it's still relevant today because it highlights the impact of a pace-layered application strategy. And the system of record is the business's heartbeat. It makes up 90% of your critical systems. It's tightly governed and it's stable for decades. Systems of differentiation, on the other hand, are about 9% of your applications, and they've got a life cycle normally of years. Whereas innovation is actually only 1% of your overall stack. because they're experimental. You're meant to break them. You're meant to test and create new breakthroughs with that. So it shouldn't risk the entire business to do that innovation. Gives me at its highest level an opportunity to tell you about SAP's modern ERP or digital core we call S/4HANA Cloud. As mentioned, you can choose the modules that you need, and then it will bring you this digital age user experience to them where it adapts on any device. If you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a computer, it knows that and it adjusts the screen for you automatically. And S/4HANA Cloud helps eliminate and automate tasks and provide you with some intelligent insights so that you can actually make better business decisions. So SAP has significantly simplified ERP operations since those monolithic days from 30 years ago. And today, everything runs in real time on this engine that we call HANA, the data engine, and it makes it easy for companies to experiment with new business models, including things like services or subscription models, without having to do major code changes. So that led me to lesson number 4, is to focus on what you can deliver. You should not be creating systems to manage your internal business processes. SAP has actually invested over $25 billion in the last 5 years to develop a next generation ERP platform that allows you to run your business at its best with the best. Actually today, 908 of the top 1,000 companies in the world, that's 908 companies out of the top 1,000 are SAP customers. And in the media industry, 9 of the top 10 companies use SAP for finance and spend management. So, we support the entire end-to-end value chain for media and entertainment companies. So from idea to greenlight, SAP handles accounting for multi-sided revenue models, and it automates invoices and payment processing. So for direct-to-consumer businesses, SAP helps monetize consumer habits, settle with your partners, manage revenue recognition, and perform profitability analysis down to individual titles. So with SAP, you can reimagine your source to pay, your hire to retire, and your content to cash all in one suite. And at the center of an SAP system is something unique to SAP, and that's why I guess 9 out of the top 10 largest media companies use us too, is because we have this thing called the Media Product Master. So we really understand the industry. We gather all the asset data that you associate with the title hierarchy, and we store it in this thing called the Universal Journal. And it allows the real-time tracking of costs, revenues, and other financial metrics across any dimension. So the SAP Universal Journal really makes everything available instantly to everyone who's posted it. Which brings me to the 5th lesson that I learned in production, which is that very often less is more. And this should be the same with your ERP system. You don't need to overcomplicate things, and we can actually help you simplify and use industry best practices to run at your best. Now, if your company still uses what's called multi-batch processing routines, I can tell you there's hope. A customer told me that before their transformation, they had 1,500 charts of accounts that they used to reconcile monthly. It was a major telecom company. And he said that after they had implemented this platform, they had 75 charts of accounts, so down from 1,500 accounts to 75. And it actually gave them persistent data that they could access much faster. So they were able to eliminate all these multi-batch processing routines. In their case, it meant being able to run trial balances and what-if scenarios before the end of the quarter instead of trying to play catch-up after the end of the quarter to report their books. So as I mentioned, this customer had 1,500 charts of accounts. They're able to simplify and get that down to a much smaller footprint with HANA. Now, the data is still all there. It's just that it's vastly simplified how we can access it and organize it thanks to the use of this in-memory technology from SAP. And that kind of brings us to the final lesson, is to be an early adopter of artificial intelligence. I mean, the music industry arguably has been an early adopter of AI. Where would we be without Autotune? But something that I get asked is, where is AI likely to impact your company? And the answer really is, it's likely to impact it everywhere. So basically, AI will touch every part of your company. Forget on the production side, I'm just talking the back office. It'll help you automate tasks. It'll help even answer customer service requests automatically. It'll help you accomplish a task, or maybe even write a performance review for someone, or create a job description to hire new talent. Or it will help you identify process improvements and optimize routines to streamline a process. And asking it to mine data, this is the one I love, is, you can send a query to it instead of having to go and load up a dashboard and extract the data and bring it into Excel and create a pivot table and create a graph. And forget that. You just ask the system a prompt and it will return the information to you. So that saves a huge amount of time for our customers. So we have a number of AI scenarios that are actually available today for media companies, and it works from directly within SAP solutions. So AI touches the entire SAP portfolio, and we have a very active roadmap of Gen AI capabilities that we just released in Q3. Some of them are mentioned here, and we have a whole roadmap that is coming both in Q4 and obviously into 2025. So a recent Gartner study found that 47% of employees struggle to find the right data. And an IDC report suggested that digital workers spend 2.5 hours a day searching for information. And with SAP's modern cloud ERP solution, we call the Copilot Joule. So with that's built into this next generation platform. Again, it's called S/4HANA Cloud, and it's the public edition, and it addresses this by offering quick contextual access to content and applications through simple verbal prompts, and it really enhances your productivity. Users can ask Joule and get answers in 30 seconds for things that would have taken at least 10 minutes, and I think 10 minutes is being generous. And the possibilities, of course, with that are endless. There's other queries where you see people able to execute and get to the information they need faster within seconds. So I hope you can see that the possibilities are endless with SAP. And if anything has piqued your interest, obviously, I'll be happy to share more information with you. And if anyone would like to discuss anything further or want to introduce yourself after the session, please come and say hi. So thank you for your time.